3, 2. Hey everybody, it's John DePietro, and welcome to another segment of Salisbury 500. Yes, you're wondering where the name Salisbury 500 comes from. Well, it's where Assumption College is located, 500 Salisbury. And I am talking with people that I've met during my years at Assumption, not my college years, because they'd all be old and gray. And you know what? This is not sponsored by Assumption. It's not sanctioned by Assumption. They might not even know about it. However, we want you to tell others about it. So right down in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, there's a little button that says subscribe. Hit that button, and then a little bell will appear. And when you hit the bell, every time we come out with a new edition of Salisbury 500, you'll be the first to know. And with that being said, it's time to welcome our guest for this segment. And I want to welcome you to meeting our friend, Assistant Professor at the Grennan School of Business, Professor Elizabeth O'Hara, AKA Libby. Libby, welcome to Salisbury 500.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I'm on a real live, like Oprah kind of show.
Oh, an Oprah kind of show. Yeah, we won't ask you any embarrassing questions. So.
No, I'll answer them. I don't care.
Okay. So tell us how long you've been at Assumption, a little bit about where you came from prior to here and, you know, hometown and all that other stuff. That people...
Sure. So I'm a Western Mass girl, born and raised. I moved all over, lived in Chicago, worked in the financial sector in Chicago. And then during my time in Chicago, I kind of had a pivotal, life-changing moment. I actually met Beck Weathers, who they wrote the book about when he climbed Mount Everest. And I was at a time in my life when I needed to make a critical decision about where I was going. So he helped me actually when I heard him speak. Quit my job, went to UMass, the Eisenberg School, got my master's in business with a concentration in sport management, and ended up through a series of wonderful hard work and luck efforts at Madison Square Garden. So I worked in community relations at the Garden for about 5 or 6 years, met some really interesting people, still in touch with all of them, fortunately. Went back to the business world and then met my now husband, who's a Worcester native, moved here.
I understand he's a golfer, is that right?
Yeah, something like that. He's actually the golf coach at Assumption, 2-time Coach of the Year, NE10, and NE10 champion golf team this year. So John O'Hara.
Don't you want to promote that with?
Yes. So thank you, John.
Oh, there you go.
I keep it with me all the time.
There you go. You never know when you're going to run into a golf course.
Yeah, they call. Oh no.
I interrupted you. I interrupted you. You left the Garden and
I started working in the private sector again in financial and communications, and then decided, this does nothing for my hair. Then decided, I know I need a haircut, this is killing me, to embark on teaching. And I was fortunate enough to have met Frank Vanna through my husband, another Board of Trustee member, Hound alum.
Your career does revolve around golf.
It really does. And so he introduced me to some people at Assumption about 6 years ago, and I was hired. I was first hired as an adjunct, and then they hired me full-time to help coordinate the now official sport management minor at Assumption.
Okay. So basically what you've told us is that you're bringing real-world experience to the classroom.
Absolutely. My students hear stories all the time.
And how important, Libby, is that? How important is that to actually teach what you've done?
Well, it's incredibly important because that's what we want our students to understand. They use the term experiential learning, and sometimes you hear that thrown around a little too loosely.
Yeah, it's all that academic talk.
Yeah, it's all that, of which I am not. Yeah. But what it does is it adds credibility to when you're teaching in the classroom, and that, yes, I had to escort Michael Jordan, which if you come to Assumption, you'll hear that story. Yeah. Or how you coordinate and how you manage people and how you motivate. But most importantly, what I think my kids learn and what I think our kids have found success is they are passionate, they are relentless, and they have a support system behind them at school that pushes them. We have students now working at the Brooklyn Nets, the Red Sox, the Bruins, Nesson, the Paw Sox, all these amazing organizations, Puma, only because they were relentless, and they had us supporting them.
Relentless and passionate.
Yes.
Two phrases that you don't hear connected with a classroom a lot. But my guess is that you're pushing them, not, and I don't mean pushing, putting pressure on them, but making them realize it's not about the classroom, but about the time after the classroom.
100
Right?
million%. Yes, that it's being able to take situations and talk about them in the classroom. Like, how would you handle that? Or having guest speakers come in. My students just listened as part of their sport management curriculum this semester to a LinkedIn series called Front Office Features, where they actually interview sports executives. And Sam Kennedy was the last one they listened to. And Sam talked about how he would write letters to team owners. He was relentless in his goal, and now he's the president of the Boston Red Sox. So those are the things that kids take away and say, if Sam Kennedy can do that,
Why
so
not
can
me?
I.
Why not me?
Exactly.
Because you know what? It's kind of interesting that in sports, it's all about failing during practice and
Yes.
realizing that in baseball, the guy who wins the not the MVP, but the batting championship, might have a 300 batting percentage, which means they've made outs 7 times out of 10 times up, but yet they still persisted and became the champion. Tell me some of the, you don't have to mention names, but right now, some of the most recent graduates, some of their success stories.
Oh, sure. So soon to be Worcester Red Sox, with whom we have a wonderful partnership, which we can talk about that too. And Alex was interning, and Alex said to me, I really want to work full time. I don't know if they're going to hire me. And he and I would talk and talk. And I said, become irreplaceable. So as a result, they actually created a position for Alex. Larry Lucchino went to his board. They created a position for Alex, and he is now the coordinator of community relations for the Paw Sox and soon to be Woo Sox. He has become the face of the team in more ways than one.
Now, Alex is a guy who played baseball.
Yes.
Part of that group that you're the base group.
The base, the kids
which
from the
we'll
base.
have to talk about at another time, because there's 10 minutes right there.
Yeah.
But Alex was the one who I believe escorted Lucchino and
Yes.
Dr. Charles when
Yes.
they came up to Assumption to make an announcement a couple of years ago.
And he made an impression then, and I knew he would, and he didn't give up. He stayed in touch with them. He kept in touch, and now he's full-time. John Manuel Martinez is another example. He interned at the Red Sox and then at the Paw Sox and did anything they asked him. One day it was really hot. He noticed people were thirsty. He went out into the cooler, grabbed some waters, and started selling waters. He has since interned at the Detroit Tigers for international scouting. He's now with the AA team for the Boston Red Sox in Virginia. He's waiting for the seasons to start. He's part of the MLB Diversity Fellowship Program. Again, he took the initiative. He reached out to the head of diversity at Major League Baseball, went to New York and met with this man, and as a result has a career that's going to be amazing in front of him.
But more important than that, these, and I know both of the people you talked about, even though we didn't stage this to talk about those two guys, they're good kids.
Great kids.
Above all.
Above all. And we have a partnership. I think another important thing is we have partnerships with the Worcester Railers. Mike Myers, who you interviewed, the COO of the Railers, I mean, he's an alum, but he's just as hard on our kids. And I tell them, Holy Cross calls us for interns. Our kids are interning in the Holy Cross Athletic Department, a Division I.
Time out. Another college in Worcester is calling you to get Assumption kids to work there. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, go figure. I don't know. Go figure. I don't know why.
You know what? That's so funny, because when Brian Kelly got the job at Notre Dame, his assistant was actually whose parents owned the New York Giants, but he was a Holy Cross guy. I said, it's about time we got things right where we got Greyhounds having assistants from, but again, we have a great rivalry with that school. We only have a couple minutes left, and I want you to tell me what you know about number 11 from the New Orleans Saints.
Great kid. So Deontay and I keep in touch. He is, of course, I'm the mother, and I'm always worried, are you saving your money? Don't buy a big car. He is so grounded. He is so driven and passionate. I have a video that I took. I was writing a paper in a Starbucks when he caught the pass. It was like a 50-yard pass right at the 2-yard line, and he jerked his head. And I watched that all the time. That kid, he's going to go far. No one thought he would. He's a little guy. He is 120% heart, and he is just as good a kid as he is a talented football player.
And I understand that he came back to Baltimore, where he's from, that area, and what was it, Christmas gifts or food bank or something? But he did something.
He does it all. He knows where he came from. He's humble. He thanks God every day. You know, his faith is a big part of his life. I couldn't be prouder of the kid. And I never had him in class. He laughs and he texts me. He says, one of my biggest mistakes was I never took you in class. But yet he knows. He knows who loves him. He knows who supports him. We could not be more proud of that kid, not just for his on the field accomplishments, but what he does off the field. And he's driving a Honda. Thank God.
Okay, so he's not getting stuck. He's not getting
raised. He has a wonderful family too. He has a wonderful family who keep him grounded. His mother manages him, so it's all good.
Good, great, super. So what we want to do is, we are out of time for this segment, but there's so many stories. Will you do me a favor and come back at another time? We'll talk about other kids. And
you know me, I like to talk almost as much as you.
Yeah, exactly. I think this time you did, so that's pretty
I know.
But Libby, we want to thank you so much for being with us, and thank our audience for joining us. And folks, stay tuned to this YouTube channel, because we're going to have more and more of these programs as they become available. And we've got about 15 done right now, and we've got about 15 all ready to go. And it's all about good people doing good things. So with that being said, thank you for joining us for this edition of Salisbury 500. My name is John DePietro, and go Hounds.